Tibetan Buddhism, also called Lamaism or Himalayan Buddhism, is a branch of Tantric and Esoteric Buddhism, that evolved from the 7th century in Tibet, when the Tibetan king, Songtsan Gambo, asked Indian Buddhist teachers to come to Tibet and instruct his disciples, by practicing shamanic traditions found in contemporary Central Asia. The first transmission of Buddhism to Tibet took place with the support of the imperial government, and it continued until disrupted in the 9th century by the collapse of the Tibetan Empire. With the rise of the Mongol Empire in the 13th century, Tibetan Buddhism began to flourish in Central Asia and China. It spread beyond the Tibetan Plateau to Mongolia, Nepal, Eastern Russia, and China. Tibetan Buddhism is a religion in exile, forced from its homeland when Tibet was conquered by the Chinese. The best-known personality of Tibetan Buddhism is Dalai Lama, who has lived in exile in India since he fled Chinese occupation of his country in 1959. Buddha and Lama. A Lama is a teacher, who can often be a monk or a nun. Lamaism is another name for Buddhism in Tibet, derived from this term. Dali is a Mongol word, meaning ocean, and refers to the depth of the Dalai Lama's wisdom. The first Dalai Lama to bear this title was Gedun Drupa, in 1391. The current Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso, was born in Tibet in 1935 and is the 14th Dalai Lama. The term Buddha means an enlightened or awakened one who has discovered true wisdom and attained nirvana. Tibetan Buddhism teaches that we are all potential Buddhas, because we are essentially pure at the core of our existence. Bodhisattva is a Sanskrit word meaning a being of enlightenment. A Bodhisattva is basically a rising Buddha who has not yet attained full enlightenment. Tibetan Buddhism incorporated a range of practices from Indian Buddhism. These include the meditation practices of shamatha, meaning calm abiding, and vipassana, meaning insight. Tibetan Buddhist schools also incorporated the esoteric practices of mantra, or sacred verses, mudra, or sacred hand gestures, and mandala. Tibetan sand mandalas are sacred representations of the universe created to encourage healing, peace, and purification. A mandala, which is the Sanskrit term for circle, is a geometric image representing the universe. Rituals and spiritual practices such as mantras are popular with Tibetan Buddhists. They include prostrations, making offerings to statues of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Tantric Buddhism, meaning thunderbolt or diamond vehicle in Sanskrit, is often expressed through symbols of sexuality, such as Yabiyam, translated as father and mother, which represents the male deity in sexual embrace with his female partner. Bardo is the state between death and rebirth. In traditional Tibetan Buddhism, the dead person is helped through Bardo by a Lama, who reads prayers and performs rituals from the Book of the Dead, advising the deceased to break free from attachment to their previous life. In Buddhist literature, Dharma often refers to Buddhist teaching and practice in general. Dharma can refer to universal law, teaching, truth, and duty. In the early texts, it is said that Brahma, the creator of the universe, appeared before the Buddha and requested him to teach the Dharma. Buddha gave his first Dharma teaching in Varanasi, at a deer park, called Sarnath, presenting the Four Noble Truths and the way out of suffering. The Four Noble Truths of Tibetan Buddhism are the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the end of suffering, and the truth of the path that leads to the end of suffering. Tripitaka is ancient collections of Buddhist sacred texts. It contains the Dharma or teachings of Buddha, as well as the Buddhist canon for monks and nuns. Love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive. Dalai Lama, thanks for watching. For more related videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel.